new that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Oh, there I am down the corner again. How are you, folks? Hope you're doing all right. Happy Tuesday to you. Sorry about last night. I did have sort of, most of a show prepared. But I found myself getting a lot of phone calls yesterday from people who were needing a lot of help. And one of them was someone who's very close to me who rang not long before showtime, and I talked for about 2 hours or longer. So, yeah, it had me going a long time. So I do apologize. That's what sort of kept me away. But was able to figure out a solution to an issue. So always happy to be able to help in those regards. Now, how are you going? How's your heart? If you're in the silvers or metal market, how's your heart going? You doing all right? Yeah, I know. I know exactly what you're feeling. We'll get into it shortly. Peter, how you doing, brother? In Pinaroo. Well, the rainwater's out. Okay, right. You've been oversprayed, so you're getting a whole heap of crap there. Yeah, that's never any pleasantness there. Andrew was first in the house tonight. Nice to see you, mate. Sorry I got to Pete first. I don't know why that happened. You should have been popped up first in my list. And to Spazza, g'day, brother. Hope you're going well. Yes, I've seen your emails, and certainly some government employees do, I think, have considerable things to worry about going into the future. And hopefully you'll be able to help them with all of that. I'm sure you will. Hello, Aussie Sue. God love you. Some beautiful images you're posting up lately too, can I just point out? And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. The all-important algorithms, folks. We need that help. I promise you we need that help for a variety of reasons, one of which we'll get into tonight because Victoria have now threatened us. We are no longer allowed to sell Victorians lottery tickets. Might have to move to South Australia, where looks like the Stony Creek bush camp have an idea. Well, I don't know, Wayno, whether or not that's particularly you got stoned at the Stony Creek bush campsite. It would have been a big weekend. I'm sure there were many things going on over the weekend. Wilmington in South Australia had a big rodeo. And when I say big, they had people come down from Queensland, from Western Australia, and from the Northern Territory, as well as obviously a whole heap of Victorians and South Australians. And so Wilmington's population swelled considerably. I do have some video of it. For some reason or other, it hasn't loaded up. So I'm guessing I've got too much in there at the moment to load these files up. So I might have to do it another night. But congratulations to all and sundry who must have been involved with the Wilmington Rodeo. It looked like it was a huge success. And the flag parade and everything, I've got some imagery of that. So congratulations to all. And I'm sure the Stony Creek bush camp got well filled out. If you want to come, folks, we're trying to get a group of us together to go to Wilmington. We're going to have a bit of fun in that there is a slot car track at the Wilmington bush camp. And we thought we might have a slot car competition, maybe an endurance race, a mixed men's, ladies kind of thing. There might be a remote control car thing happening. I've got to go to work on a little bit of sponsorship for that, but we would love to. If you've got a remote control car, there is a track. We can do some interesting things. I've got some friends who've got remote control drag cars, so they might be interested in coming along, although I don't know if they're going to work in the dirt or they need something harder. Won't matter because the bush camp has a basketball court, tennis court, something like that, or both. Certainly gives it a hard surface. So if you'd like to go, we're sort of looking at doing that somewhere around March, April. And we're going to work in with obviously everybody at the camp. So Wayne and I think we had some tentative dates for March, April from memory. I've got to get back in touch and find that out. So expect a call, Wayno. I'll be happening there. What's the best 4x4? Well, Gomez, there are so many 4x4s. It depends what you want to do with it. If you just want to drive it around in a city environment, then probably an electric one. Although I would caution, and here's the cautionary story of the day, folks. I got a phone call from Skipper Pete up in far north Queensland, who tells me a friend of his is extremely shaken after an event that happened to her either today or yesterday. She was driving along a road up in far north Queensland. The road had some roadworks on it, and it meant that people in the right-hand lane, if you like, the oncoming lane, needed to just be a little bit careful of what they were doing. The road had narrowed, and on the left-hand side, there were bollards sort of stopping you going off the road. The oncoming vehicle, to Skipper Pete's friend telling the story, the oncoming vehicle swerved into her lane, then swerved back into its lane, then swerved back again into the right-hand lane, where our earnest storyteller had to take evasive action and went left, drove over the bollards. This was so close to a head-on accident that both the side mirrors collided and smashed. About outside of that, no further damage. Now, they both pulled up. The lady in the other vehicle got out and was extremely shaken. She was driving a new electric vehicle. She'd had it a couple of weeks, and that electric vehicle took control of her steering as she was driving through those roadworks and put the car on the other side of the road twice. The lady had to wrestle the car back over, and it pulled it back again. So, absolutely, yeah, shit house. Now, these electric vehicles pose a variety of problems, not the least of which is that if you have lane control on selected, this thing might get confused as to what country it's in for a second and put you on the right lane rather than the left. It could get confused about where it is in roadworks and all that sort of thing and put you into oncoming traffic. And when it does, you have no control. Your steering wheel, she don't work. Now, how this lady was able to wrestle the car back onto the left-hand side, and then it took control again and swerved her back. And if it hadn't have been for our storyteller moving over and hitting the bollards, driving over the bollards, getting off the road, and only getting her mirror smashed, it would have been a head-on accident. So, folks, really think long and hard about electric vehicles, full stop. We know that a large Chinese company producing buses and vehicles, but we know that the buses have been compromised. 60 of them were bought by some green tree-hugging state in America, and the day they were delivered, it was discovered that China could turn those buses off at any time through their constant internet connection to them. And software updates, in fact, systems that would be loaded in America to help the bus network work would have been duplicated and spied upon back in China, the whole deal. So just be really careful. Anything you say or do inside an electric vehicle is recorded and kept in the car. It's got to be transferred somewhere. They don't just store it or shoot it for fun. They don't just record it for fun or because they can. They record everything for a purpose. So just remember that. And you are most often not going to have access to anything that they're doing. Okay, so now, for those of you playing along at home, you've probably had a few conniptions and are thinking, oh my God, I listened to Carl, I listened to Cass, and look what happened to Gold and Silver on Friday. Carl's gone quiet. Everybody's gone dark over the weekend. I couldn't buy anything in the dip. And what the hell's going on? I got a ton of phone calls Saturday morning when Ainsley Bullion announced, well, I think it came in an email Saturday morning, it might have been Friday night, that they were closing online sales. They're closing their online shop last weekend, predominantly can I say, so that they can catch up on all of the orders that they have. Now, bear in mind that Ainsley, as was every other bullion company, closed between Christmas and New Year. They reopened on the 5th of January after closing Christmas Eve. And everybody went mad during that period and started buying. And of course, with everybody closed, the only way to buy was online. Unprecedented was the way that Michael Engerman, the CEO of Ainsley Bullion, described it to me. Unprecedented in history, the level of demand that Ainsley, but not just Ainsley, that every bullion dealer in this country and around the world received. So when they came back to emailed orders stacked to the roof high many times. And of course, while they have a very large supply on hand, they also had stuff that they needed to get in from the Perth Mint and, wherever else they get stuff from. So there's been a certain wait period involved in getting some of that. And some of you, I'm sure, are still waiting for things that you ordered before Christmas that haven't been delivered yet. I know I am. So don't get concerned about that. It's going to come. It's all in the process. And from a stock position, when I last spoke to Michael, he said that there is no problem with stock, that Ainsley have tons, literally, of stock, and that they are having no problems placing forward orders to the Perth Mint. Things may have changed over the weekend. I don't know. Haven't spoken to Michael this week. I do plan to try and catch up and get a word with him at some stage, maybe tomorrow before they open for business. Just a reminder that Ainsley's office hours are thinned at the moment, 9 till 3, if you're going in to pick up or buy something. That's in every one of their offices around the country. So if you don't want to go in, of course, you can order online. And if they have it in stock, that just means you can go in and pick it up whenever you want, or you can. And in part, the problem that they have is that I've really encouraged you to buy online and stay out of the queues. And I'm sure others have done the same. And many people have taken that advice. So that's what's put on a huge flood of orders. And over the weekend, I'm led to believe just about every Ainsley staff member was in packing boxes and sending them out, getting ready for them to be sent out Monday morning. So there'll be a lot of people getting deliveries over the course of the next week or so. Should make them very, very happy, I hope. Of course, given what happened on Friday, there was also probably a lot of meetings, a lot of international telephone calls, and a lot of information being passed about exactly why the crash happened. And there are a variety of reasons that have been put forward, not least of which is Donald Trump's appointment of a new Fed chair, one that supposedly is going to be more inclined to drop interest rates. So I don't think that's going to be the case. The guy that they've appointed is quite hawkish. And of course, interest rates are not getting dropped here in Australia. We're so lucky indeed that today this bloke decided to put up your interest rate by 0.25 basis points. So up another 0.25%. I don't know if the banks have come out and confirmed that they're going to put it on you this week, next week, or next month. But rest assured, it is coming. They're going to put it up, and nothing good's coming from it. Although something could. We'll go back to the drop in silver. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Well, one of the biggest theories and provable theories that how this happened, is that the 5 largest central banks, if you like, commercial banks, mercantile banks in the world, banded together and started putting in sell orders into the market on Friday, New York time. Large sell orders. This dropped the price significantly, and that's why you saw through Friday, particularly Friday night and into Saturday, massive drops in the price. I mean, silver dropped 40%. If you went to bed on Friday thinking, oh, well, I've lost a little bit, and you woke up Saturday morning and watched, your silver account bleed, you probably thought, shit, what's happened? Well, turned out that all of those silver orders were just a farce and were in fact cancelled before they needed to be fulfilled. Now, this was done by the likes of JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and the other big banks, who were trying to narrow their short position or lower their short position so that the trillions of dollars that they had to pay people or fine to pay out their shorts was lowered to hundreds of millions maybe, or the hundreds of trillions down to just trillions. At any rate, they still lost a lot of money, but that drop was precipitated by 5 major banks all at the same time placing orders, then cancelling those orders. Just the order placement makes that, and we'll have a quick look at it, makes the big red arrow drop. So you can see that huge red candle in the middle of the screen. That's the drop that happened. Now, it got down to as low down here as $106 at one stage. But as you can see, it rallied a little bit, then it dropped a little bit, and it's rallied, and it's rallied, and it's rallied, and it's rallied. And currently, it's sitting at 126 Australian dollars or 87.5 US dollars. Now, has it reached the highs that it had last week? Absolutely not. Do you want it to? Absolutely not. That would mean there is a great deal of instability. I think what you've seen here is the discovery of the new floor in the market. But, you know, we'll talk more about that maybe with Vince, who can draw circles and arrows and implements of destruction around everything, and we might understand it better. At the moment, though, hang on to your silver is the message. Don't go spending it, because if you are following the market in any way, shape, or form, you will see that the spot price for an ounce of silver at the moment at Ainsley is $124.60 versus, which is sort of, you know, pretty much in line with obviously the spot price that I showed you there before. But if you go and try and buy an ounce of silver at Ainsley, it'll cost you $155 or more now, probably $157. So that's that discrepancy, the discrepancy between what the paper market says it is. And at the moment, it looks like through the Aussie dollar, it's fighting up a little bit to 126. But you can't buy an ounce of silver from a dealer for $126. So therefore, that price is not representative of the physical price of silver. And that's what you want to keep watching. The demand hasn't been dissipated by the fakery that these big banks pulled last Friday. And the interesting thing for me about what those big banks pulled last Friday, instigating the biggest crash in metals history, meaning that hundreds of millions of people like you and me, mum and dad investors, right? Not big institutions, although they lost too, but this was a direct attack on the retail market, if you like. And our holdings crashed 40% deliberately by these massive banks to save them from, well, possible liquidation. They're desperate. But do you find it strange that those 5 banks all were able to come up with this idea on the same day? Oh, we're all going to put out big sell orders, and then we're going to cancel them just before they're due to be fulfilled. That means that the price will be driven down with all these big sell orders going in, but nobody's buying them at the end of the day. But the price will have been driven down. And then at the appointed time, all 5 of those banks start offloading their debt and start paying out or getting what they have to get at a much supposedly cheaper rate. That's collusion. That's big corporates working together to crush a market for their own benefit. That is big corporations working behind the scenes with secret meetings and telephone calls, planning how to screw everybody, every investor in the metals market out of the gains that have been made in the physical market versus the losses they are making in their pretend and completely useless paper market. There is one word I can think of immediately that Donald Trump and the DOJ, I'm sure, if they're casting an eye over the metals market, will be thinking too. And that word is RICO. The RICO charges that were brought against Al Capone were the only way that the federal government could figure out how to get Al Capone off the streets and into jail. And they were successful. Now, it's a consorting act, which means that different companies can't join together and collude to arrange price, to get benefit for themselves at a loss for the people. It's a very powerful law in America, and I am pretty confident that RICO charges, if they aren't already laid, will be very shortly against those companies, because the stock market, and particularly the COMEX, is dead. They're trying to tell a story that they're still alive and that, or there's life in the thing yet. Don't kick it. It's only a flesh wound. It's a lot more than a flesh wound. They are suffering big time. They are bleeding silver, and more particularly, they didn't know they'd bled it until the Chinese let them know they'd bled it. The Chinese, who have always been playing the long game and have always looked at Westerners as pretty stupid because we have no long-term plan. We are all about short-term gratification, and the West has been programmed that way. You've got to have the best, the newest, the greatest. You've got to have the best and latest Apple iPhone. You've got to have the latest iMac computer. You've got to have the best Samsung. This, if you're one of those people who likes an inferior operating system, start a fight there. And I don't mean that. Android's in no way inferior. But what are you going to do? There are so many things that we could. Anyway, I've prattled on for half my show and I haven't got into my first picture yet. Life is not going well. I did show you this the other night, didn't I, when Vince was on? This is a new design that we have for T-shirts. Now, there are a couple of new designs for T-shirts, but this, you burn it, we'll wear it, I reckon, is a magnificent piece of work that Vince put hours and hours and hours of thought into before he told ChatGPT what to do. And essentially, that's what it came up with. They made a few changes, a little bit of intra-discussion. But you burn it, we'll wear it. Proud Australians, 100%. Now, on the T-shirt, doesn't come just with something on the front, comes with something on the sides. So on the right-hand sleeve, you get the new FBN logo, which I don't have in here and can't show a bigger version of, but I really like the FBN logo. You'll see in a new Voice of Freedom logo on the shirt that we'll have here shortly. We are making extensive use of what I think is one of the most magnificent animals Australia has. And that, of course, would be the wedge-tailed eagle. I particularly like the 1 ounce wedge-tailed eagle coins too. Very much so at the moment. On the left-hand sleeve, you will get my head with the Voice of Freedom logo. And on the front of it, you will get a shirt. Oh, well, that's what it says on the front. They look good in all the different colors. And in fact, you can have the Voice of Freedom one in pink if you like. And that's what the Voice of Freedom new logo will look like as well. So thanks, Vince, for putting in so much work on all of those. You're a bloody legend. You don't have to wear pink, boys. You can wear it on blue, particularly looks good. Black doesn't look bad either. Now, we haven't got these available for sale yet. Why the hell are you showing us then? I can hear you saying it. I know Vince was very excited, as am I. So we're excited just to let you know that very shortly, when we figure out the little connection link we've got between the website you do the ordering on and our website, then you will be able to just click and make that your own. You will also be able to put the logo on practically anything that you choose inside the website. If you want a mug, if you want a hat, if you want a cooking apron, which we just looked at there before. That's Vince and I, not you and I. So you can put it on practically anything you like, but I love the idea, you burn it, we'll wear it. I'm over people burning the Australian flag. And if anybody will ever sell me an Aboriginal flag, I will happily go and burn it. And we can have a discussion about it while I'm burning. And it'll be about as effective as the discussions many people have with those that burn the Australian flag. Couldn't give a shit what you think. Craig Cole, wonderful man. He's got a walk coming up very shortly, Sunday the 22nd of February. Wanted me to let everybody know about it. He was going to be in tonight for the show, but unfortunately got called away. So if you are available, put it in your diary now. We'll get to Craig and have a chat about it before this happens again. But this is a walk for the children to protect their innocence, something that we can all get behind. Sunday the 22nd of February, 11 a.m. at Princes Park Royal Parade in Melbourne. I know that corner very well. Used to stay at the old Princes Park Motor Inn many years ago. I think these days it's where they put people there ready to deport. At least they used to. Melbourne, marvellous state, marvellous place, Melbourne. Beautiful one day and, well, dystopian the next. Stonington Council. Don't we love Stonington? They're leaders, aren't they, in trying to extract more money out of their ratepayers. So the folks that live in the Stonington Council are now going to be forced to pay up to $250 to park outside their own homes. Now, parking, if you've ever been in some of these small streets and suburbs in Melbourne, well, large suburbs and small streets, parking is at a premium. Many places don't have a garage or much more than half a car length of a driveway that you can park your car in. Some people, some houses have certainly shared accommodation. So let's say, for instance, there's two couples living in a house. There could be 4 cars to a house. Stonington at the moment has issued 2 free parking places to every dwelling, I think, and then you can pay, or have been able to pay in the past, a small fee to get extra ones or temporary ones. Well, they've buggered that right up. Now you're going to pay up to $250 per household for your car parks. Now that will be a number of cars, but probably not more than 3. And good luck avoiding that. The argument is that they are putting a tax upon a tax. So if you are going to argue it, and I suggest that those of you who like to play in the common law world will, they're putting a tax on a tax. So put aside for one moment, you're probably the wrong people to say that to, the fact that taxes are illegal. You can't put a tax on a tax. And the tax that they're putting the tax on would be your rates. You pay for access in your rates. The argument is, how much access do you pay for? Do you pay for 4 car parks or 6 car parks for your one house, leaving everybody else on the street a few car parks short? And that's why you wind up having very great arguments about who parks where, when, and why. And your car will get towed in Melbourne for that reason. So be aware that it's not a great thing. There's this bloke we could talk about, and as much as I don't like talking about this bloke, I've got that kind of a smile on my face. Dan Andrews is in a pretty bad way, undergoing intensive rehabilitation after he has suffered a serious medical episode. Now, apparently there is concern among political colleagues. Could that be that, he may not be able to stand in Albo Sleazy's seat and be parachuted into the Federal Labor Party at the appropriate time? But I don't want to sound horrible or like I would wish the worst to happen to him. So I'll stop there. I tell you the reason I'm pausing, because I'm quite torn on this subject. By the sound of it, he has had a neurological episode, otherwise termed potentially a stroke or something similar. Somebody that we all know and love and are very close to, Wade from Billboard Battalion, has also had a stroke, and it's quite a severe stroke. So I find it impossible to attack Dan Andrews over his neurological issue while knowing that one of our own is suffering from something similar potentially, or at least in a bad way. So all I will say is that it is unclear whether or not Dan Andrews' previous stay in hospital has any relevance or bearing as to the current stay in hospital. You might remember his previous stay in hospital was the result of a fall down the stairs at a Sorrento home, which has been alleged to be Lindsay Fox's home. And the fall down the stairs wasn't quite a fall down the stairs, but was a severe kicking and beating handed out by one of the guests at the household that evening after Dan Andrews had made an alleged sick and disgusting move on a young girl at the party who turned out to be the friend of one of the daughters of people who were at the party. We got more information today out of the injuries that he suffered than we ever did in the 3 months that he was in hospital recovering from them. Collapsed both lungs, crushed back, 4, I think it was, broken ribs, and the inability to breathe, resuscitation, or not resuscitation, I'm sorry, respiration issues. He had a serious fall down the stairs, a very serious fall down the stairs. And there are some people, of course, who are worried about him in Victoria. I'm worried about Wade. There was Belinda from Billboard Battalion put out a message on Facebook the other night. I think it was over the weekend. She is calling for help. Now, help comes in many forms. Obviously, I'm not exactly sure where Wade is currently, but he is going to need care, and they're looking to get him into respite, or sorry, not respite, into rehab in Melbourne somewhere. So I'm not sure whether or not they've found anywhere yet. If you do happen to know of rehab centres in Melbourne that are particularly working with stroke, those of suffering from stroke, then please reach out via the Billboard Battalion Facebook page. If you can't find that, reach out to me at carl@vofhq.com, and I will make sure that Belinda is notified immediately. Now, of course, that sort of care, that sort of level of care comes at a significant cost. And Wade, like many others, have been on the road tirelessly without being paid, without doing their normal job. He's been on the road for us. And if you are in any way in a position to help Wade out, then you can make a donation at Billboard Battalion's Facebook page. There is a donation page there. Do not go through any other way to make a donation toward Wade. There are a couple of scams out there that are happening, filthy pricks, and just be aware the only way to donate is through the Billboard Battalion Facebook page. They are also looking for people who would be interested in helping with Wade's recovery. Now, that will stretch from things like being able to sit with Wade in the rehab, helping him do things, maybe allowing Belinda to have some time away to do, her chores, the things she needs to do, to attend to Billboard Battalion work, which she and Nick are still trying to do, but it's a big job. So trying to, do the best thing by Wade, trying to keep the interest in Billboard Battalion going, and just trying to answer what they can of questions when they can to the thousands of messages that I know that are pouring in. So please, they know you wish well. If you want to help them know that you wish well, you can donate there. Thank you, Vince, for putting up the the website button. And if you do know of a rehab facility in Melbourne somewhere that might be able to take on Wade in a specialist capacity, then please reach out. I'll bring you what details I can. I don't like to interrupt. I don't like to put a burden on Belinda or Nick. I sort of reach out once a week, maybe, just to see how he is. And at the moment, I can't even tell you where he is. He could be in Sydney. He could be somewhere between Sydney and Melbourne. I don't know. But he will be looking for somewhere in Melbourne as a rehab to get better. So if you can help in that way, please, folks, we need it. It's a pity we can't reach out to the government for help, but then they've got ministers and people working in the government like Annika Wells, our sports minister. So 2022-23, here's some of the sporting events, or all the sporting events she went to. Brisbane Test, the Melbourne Test. She went to the Australian Open in January for the tennis finals. How nice. In 2024, she headed off for a round of golf at the Royal Queensland Golf Club. 4 people played there. We paid for that. She was off to the Australia v Pakistan third test, which I was thinking was in Brisbane, her home state. But actually, looking at the next entry, which is the Jane McGrath High Tea, I want to say that third test was played in Sydney. So we also probably paid for the accommodation and the flights and everything else down for that. Then, of course, she had to get home, and then a Comcar, maybe, I would say so, from her place in Brisbane down to the Magic Millions on the Gold Coast for the race day there. A couple of days back at the Australian Open, just in the middle of January, day 3 and day 4. Not much happening there. You're only going to see the little ones. But, oh, look, the Sail GP would be much more interesting. So let's flip off to that. That was in Sydney from memory. So, yeah, let's scoot off to Sydney after a couple of days in Melbourne at the tennis. How nice. Then second test with the Windies, which happened, that was back in January on the 25th, which, where would that have been? Without me looking it up, I don't know, maybe Hobart. Anyway, you can see for yourself that this woman has had a bloody great time on it. She even went back for a bite nearly the finals, day 14, 15 of the Australian Open. It continues in Brisbane. And I'm bringing these all up for a reason. So in Brisbane, she's been to the Brisbane Test late last year. She went to the Melbourne Test. Good on her. Her husband likes cricket. That's how that works. On the 29th, she was at the Brisbane International. That's the tennis. Sydney Test on the 4th. Yes, there you go. The 4th of January last year, this is. High tea, Australian Open for the finals. And she went to Sail GP in 2025. Here is what she's done since she's been queried on how much of our taxpayer money she's wasted fritting herself around the world and around the country. So far, she's been to the softball down under, which was in Brisbane, and she went to the Brisbane International Tennis, not the Australian Open. She didn't go to the cricket in November. She didn't go down to the MCG for cricket in December, which hitherto looks like it had been a family trip event organised almost. Got to go down for the Boxing Day test. I mean, it's an amazing thing. Annika Wells has disappeared off the face of the earth, Labor keeping her well out of view of the public and certainly out of view of journalists. Why? Because they can't defend it. It's fraud. And I'm not just picking on Labor here. I'm picking on Liberals and Nationals and mostly independents too, I would say. They're all having a go. They're all having a go at it, or have had a go at it. Now they're starting to get a little bit worried because people are finding out. Paperwork is mysteriously popping out of places people didn't know there were places for it to pop out of. Here's an example of that. There's a chance that the new mayor of New York City, Zohan Mamdani, is Jeffrey Epstein's biological son. I know, right? However, the story continues, and so do the pictures, showing that Epstein was chaperoning this young boy around for quite some time, different times, during the period he was obviously being seen with Ghislaine and the likes of Bill Clinton and that piece of shit on the right-hand side. Well, there's two pieces of shit on the right-hand side, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. So, and is that AOC behind the red line? I can't quite make out. How would that play out if Epstein's son is found to be the current head of New York? I don't think it's going to play out well, put it that way. Now, here is a story which I can confirm, not or deny. I have no idea if this is true, but it is a nice, warm story, I thought. And it has to do with Melania and Baron Trump. Now, there's not too much good news about Melania at the moment, particularly if you're talking about her movie/documentary. It has been panned by the critics, been raved about how bad it is. I haven't watched it, but that would suggest to me that it's probably quite good. I generally find that the critics these days, when they pan something, it's usually something that appeals to me and I quite enjoy. So at some point in time, I don't remember what platform it's on, probably Netflix or Prime or Binge or one of them there. Get a look at it and see what it's all about. There's apparently no truth in the story that she is removing the very good plastic mask and revealing that she is Princess Diana in the movie. What you might notice down the bottom there in these pictures are a building and what looks like a whole pile of people sleeping under newspaper on cardboard. Well, right now it looks like, if it's true, in downtown Los Angeles, Melania and Baron Trump have joined together in a $146 million project to buy a building and put a medical center into it to look after homeless people free of charge. Anybody who needs free medical care and is living rough on the streets can get it. It is outfitted with cancer treatment bays. It is outfitted with everything you would need to do surgery. It is outfitted with 120 rooms above it for long-term accommodation for people who are recovering from surgery and getting themselves back on their feet. There is a plan to get those folks out of there and into another facility as well, so that they can obviously have bed space available. There's more than 120 beds in the whole joint, but it's amazing that they have these long-term living facilities, if that is the case. Now, it's, the Melania Baron Legacy Hospital or something like that. It's a private hospital, and only people who are living rough on the streets are allowed to be admitted and get free healthcare. Apparently, there were lineups around the street within hours of it opening. And look, if it's true, bloody great. If it's not, maybe it will be soon. Just seems like too good a feel-good story to come out from the trolls, if you know what I mean. But, who knows? It might be just to catch people like me out. Some interesting news and a big win for Donald Trump today. The Epstein files are such a wealth of information, and today they shot the Democrats and everybody else who thought this was true in the foot. Not only wasn't I friendly with Jeffrey Epstein, but based upon information that has just been released by the Department of Justice, he's talking about the Epstein files, Epstein and a sleazebag lying author named Michael Wolff conspired in order to damage me and or my presidency. So much for the radical left's hope against hope, some of whom I'll be suing. Additionally, unlike so many people that like to talk trash, I never went to the infested Epstein Island, but almost all of these crooked Democrats and their donors did. Smack. let's release the Epstein files. Everybody thought they were going to get pictures of Donald Trump fiddling little girls. Instead, they get that bit of news. Now, let's not get too excited, because the Epstein files is a two-edged sword. I've been talking to Craig Cole. I've been talking to Darren Bergwerf over the last couple of days, both of whom have been prolific in their opinions of late, and some of those based on what's happening within the Epstein files. Now, I agree, there are a number of concerning issues raised in the Epstein files concerning a number of police officers who are named and were at the time based in Port Pirie, South Australia. Now, this is just one page of 300 or 3 million pages, is it? Or words that have been released. Now, there are some very concerning words associated with all those names as to why they are of interest, why their names are on the paper, and that is to do with sex trafficking, child theft, kidnapping, all sorts of heinous crimes that have been committed predominantly against children. I don't know any context, and I was talking about this with Craig. I don't know the context of all of this. And let me explain why context is important. Yesterday, I spoke to Darren Bergwerf for an hour and a half about a whole heap of different things. He put up a very strident post, shall we say, on Saturday evening or Sunday evening, and has copped a fair bit of flack from it since. We had a conversation that was far-reaching and covered, a lot of topics. One of which was this worry that people are falling back from the freedom movement, if you like, back into the political movement, now that we are seeing One Nation ride a wave of success that has never been seen in the country before. And we did have some strident conversations about that. The reason I'm hesitating is there's parts of this conversation I'm editing in my head, and it's probably, I wasn't going to bring it up, so I think I'll just shut up and move on, because what we were talking about was this mob. And let's face it, there aren't too many people who aren't talking about this mob at the moment. One Nation on a daily basis are getting stronger, and stronger. Now, Vince has been doing a lot of work while he's been awake, and one of the things he did was make this up. Now, this, I find, a terribly interesting group of figures. Now, there are three sets of figures. They're all showing the same thing, essentially, just showing it in different ways. But it is showing the primary vote. Let's start with the top left-hand side. The primary vote, 34.1 of Labor, with One Nation clearly second, and the Coalition a long way back in third, followed by the Greens and whatever else. On the right, there is the two-party preferred vote, 56-44, and still naming it as the Coalition, which, that figure, aside from being irrelevant, there is no coalition anymore, I don't think is relevant because it's naming the wrong groups. We need a two-party preferred poll on Labor One Nation. I think that would give us a very interesting figure. A two-party preferred poll, Labor versus One Nation. If you couldn't vote for anybody else, who would you vote for? That would be a very telling thing. Vince also put a lot of work into who is doing the voting. So you can see toward the bottom or the middle there on the left-hand side, the primary vote by generation in percentages. Which leads to the black box on the right-hand side, I'm pretty confident. Or it sort of works for both of them now that I look at it. So you can see that the Gen Zs are going to vote predominantly for Labor. The millennials, pretty much the same, the Gen Xers, and the baby boomers slightly increase. Where have all the votes come from for One Nation? Well, you can see they've come from the Greens, they've come from the Liberal Party, the Nationals. And those Gen X figures particularly are the ones that really matter. Gen Z are going to be the group that doesn't vote. They'll be the highest number of non-voters, more so than anybody else, because the baby boomers are starting to wake up that the vote is actually the weapon. The Gen Xers will wake up to the vote is the weapon, and the millennials like the idea of weapons. They'll catch up eventually. Don't you think? Maybe they don't like the ideas of weapons. But Vince and I spoke about this today at length, and Vince put a post up, which I still haven't watched, on Facebook, if you want to go and see it. And I'm sure he'll talk about it at some point in one of his shows on FBN. Should I go and blow it all? Maybe I shouldn't. Watch this space. But it's interesting to see how those figures have spread out. The total estimated votes in the country, Labor, 7.5 million. With One Nation, 5.5 million. 4.5 million for the coalition. And then the Greens and other failing away underneath it. One Nation can only win power and govern this country if they win the primary vote of the nation. Is that possible? Is it possible? I don't know. It'd be nice to think so. Can we get Generation Z come back to life? I've seen a lot of younger people starting to wake up. A lot of them are complaining about the price of things, things that affect them, things like, I guess, their streaming services, the cost of telcos, the cost of fuel, although a lot of them like to ride electric bikes, except in Western Australia, where you'll have it taken off you, confiscated and crushed if you're doing anything stupid on it. Anyway, look, let's go back to One Nation, because they've had a pretty big day, not just in the polls. They've gone to South Australia, and Pauline is turning up the heat in the state battle.
Services that is happening in the state, the high debt that you have, there's no hope for the people, the cost of living, the lack of housing, mass migration, all these things have accumulated and has had an impact and still will continue to have an impact unless we put out decent, common sense policies to turn it around.
That's the strongest I've seen Pauline Hanson speak publicly, I think, ever. Whoever is coaching her is doing a brilliant job. She was metered. She didn't stumble. She sounded strong. And she had Cory Bernardi standing behind her. Everything that she said there affects us nationally. We're suffering from all of those things nationally. But right now, One Nation has the opportunity to make significant difference in one state, and that state is South Australia. Now, I know Mark Aldridge has, Mark Aldridge has said he has started a party, but it is my understanding that the party is an idea. It certainly hasn't been registered. And with the South Australian election coming up, I think at the end of March, then it will not have time to be registered, because they've put all sorts of blocks into how long you have to be registered before you can be registered as a party, so to speak, and contest an election. And you need to have 1,500 people sign your information and all that. I think it's 1,500 in South Australia. It might be more, might be less. But it's my understanding that there has been no party ratified or anything like that. And yet I do see Mark saying he's got 20-odd people contesting seats. All good to it. Maybe deregistered due to lack of numbers. Right, okay. Vince is going to be speaking with as many South Australian candidates as he can in his Vince Talk sessions on FBN. So if you're in South Australia, or indeed outside of South Australia, and want to look at some of the South Australian candidates, and there's going to be One Nation candidates in the interview list. I believe there's going to be some 20 candidates in South Australia. Could be wrong. I might have that confused with somebody else. At any rate, she's pretty happy in South Australia today. and she is not mincing her words when it comes to letting federal Labor know what's
Warning
the
Labor now, you're on notice. We are coming for your seats.
And you know what? She's going to win those seats, because when she stands up in the public and starts speaking, they believe she's going to do what she says.
And my main thing is equality for all Australians. And especially with mass migration. If you come to this country, assimilate, become Australian, and join us and be proud of what we are as a nation. Not.
How good's that? I mean, she's only been saying it for 30 years. It's not like it's new, and we shouldn't be saying, oh, God, how wonderful, put a crown around her head and send her off. No, she's been saying it for 30 years. It's just now there are ears for hearing it. Now, the immigration crisis, and it is a crisis, is affecting all of us, except for the ultra-wealthy, except for those who own their own home, and the only time it really affects them is if they get a new neighbor who moves in from overseas and they don't like the food they cook every night or the smell of it wafting over the fence. And believe you me, I've had plenty of people complaining about that. In fact, should I say this or shouldn't I? Yeah, I'm going to. In Melbourne, I know some people who are looking madly to try and find accommodation. If you can help, it's a family of 4 looking for a 3 or 4 bedroom home with enough room to keep a caravan. If you can help, carl@vofhq.com. However, they have been wandering around and going to a number of open houses trying to get a house. They are finding nothing but our latest arrivals in the queue ahead of them. They are finding out nothing but the agents are people who arrived in the queue a couple of years ago and have now got jobs as real estate agents. And the smell in the house is a bit of a mixture, I imagine, of a lot of curries and a lot of spices. And that's not coming from the people who are inside looking at it. It's probably come from the people who lived in it beforehand. So there are challenges surrounding everyone. The transport industry, not unlike the real estate industry in Victoria, is a wreck as well. The transport industry is suffering from greed, corruption, and serious safety flaws. I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago, told you about a crash on the Hume Highway near Berrima, a truck heading from Melbourne or from Victoria to Sydney, or New South Wales at least, was doing 100 kilometres an hour along the Hume at about, 1:30 in the morning, 2:00 in the morning, came around a very slight bend and came across a semi-trailer B-double that was doing, in the police report, an estimated 1 to 3 kilometres an hour. It had its lights off and was clearly unsafe. He ploughed into the back of it, only just managed to survive. Now, other trucks pulled up and obviously we helped to get this guy out. The driver of the vehicle that was doing 1 to 3 kilometres an hour was an Indian fellow. He got out and did not help the people who were trying to get the driver out of the crashed vehicle, did not help in any way. Instead, he started taking photos. And when he was queried about why he would be taking photos and not offering to help, or not indeed trying to help save this guy's life, this guy was in a terribly bad way. It's 2:00 in the morning. They are on the Hume Highway in the middle of nowhere. When they say close to Berrima, that doesn't mean that there's good ambulance, there's not a hospital, there's not intensive emergency care there. This was, an airlift that had to happen to get him to hospital. He was in intensive care for, I think, 5 days, 10 broken ribs. He was able to move his truck a metre to the right, which meant that when he hit the back of the almost stationary B-double in front of him, the impact was sort of taken down his left side and he was thrown and crushed up against the right side and all that kind of thing. So he's, anyway, he is in a very bad way. Now, I'm going to tell you the most insulting and awful thing about this. That truck driver will not be charged with driving unsafely or whatever. If he was in a car on the Hume Highway doing 1 to 3 kilometres an hour and a truck came around the corner and he got driven over, then yes, he would be at fault. And if the truck driver got killed trying to avoid him or whatever, then yes, there would be grounds. But do you know, there is no similar law if it's a truck that's doing 1 to 3 kilometres an hour. Now, the police have CB reports and witness statements from people on the Hume that night saying that that truck was all over the road, weaving and at high speed or low speed, which indicates, I'm going to have to say alleged, that the guy was allegedly asleep at the wheel. Didn't offer to help after the accident in any way, shape or form. And in fact, other Indian truck drivers who pulled up only offered to support that truck driver. They didn't come and offer any help to the bloke who had to be, you know, like there were two other, I'll assume, Aussie truck drivers trying to get this guy out of the cabin. And once they got him out of the cabin, they were trying to stop major bleeding. He had every rib just about in his body broken. He had back injuries, neck injuries, head injuries, leg injuries. And these bastards stood around taking photos. And they'll get away with it. Because there is no law that says a truck traveling at 1 to 3 kilometres an hour in a 100 kilometre an hour zone is responsible for the accident that it creates. And therefore, neither is the driver. So you should all know and beware, particularly if you have loved ones that drive for a living and drive the Hume, drive the the Pacific Highway, the Bruce Highway, any of the major arteries in this country. You should be aware that that fella and his mates are on the road tonight. What are they going to do about it? Well, I don't know. Bernardi and co might do something about it.
I'm here to tell you today that that's going to change. Our commitment is to common sense policies that give a voice back to every South Australian. Pauline made a comment that there has been no opposition in this state. It's as if the only competition we have between the two major parties is who's going to manage the social, economic and cultural decline slightly less badly than the alternative. We can't accept that anymore.
No, we can't. And Bernardi obviously feels strongly enough about it to come out of retirement. He couldn't get what was required to be done through the Liberal Party. He met far too much resistance. And, of course, that prick of a human being that we had as a Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, probably did what he thought was one of his smartest moves while he was in power, but turned out to be one of the best moves for Australians. He sidelined Cory Bernardi by sending him to the UN for 3 months. And what did Bernardi do? He didn't join the champagne swizzling tards that are swanning around on our money. He sat and took notes. He looked at how the system worked, who touched who and how intimately they got touched back. He knows the secrets of the UN and is bloody sure to want to get us out of it. I think he's a good bloke to have.
All the problems we face are a result of the decades of the two-party duopoly, which have been more entrenched about looking after their own survival than the betterment of the voters who put them there.
Couldn't agree more. Let's get a poll together of a two-party preferred One Nation v Labor, and let's see what that result says. And let's see whether or not they can keep the momentum going for the next 2 and a bit years, whatever it is. It's a bloody big job. Keeping momentum going in anything is a bloody big job. Keeping the momentum going here at the Voice of Freedom is difficult because we don't have a budget. We don't, have any kind of reliable income. We don't have any kind of much, really. What we do have is a great desire to help as many people as possible, as often as possible. And if that's by giving you information, if that's by giving you support in other ways, then I'm just pleased and proud and glad that we can do that. But the Victorian state government, as I mentioned earlier, have decided you in Victoria cannot buy one of our $2 lottery tickets anymore. Not that you were ever apparently meant to. Because why? Well, we would give you $750. And God knows the Victorian government doesn't want you having money. Bloody hell. So no, we can't give you cash. We can't give you anything. They simply have told us we cannot offer tickets for sale in Victoria at all, regardless of whether it's a good charity or not, unless there are some hoops we could jump through, but they are hoops that we can't jump through. So unfortunately, Victorians are unable to purchase tickets to our $750 lottery via merch.vofhq.com. If you live in any other state, you can, but Victoriastan has jammed us. Absolute pricks. They're the kind of pricks we can't wait for One Nation to get into in Victoria and see whether or not they can make a difference. One Nation in Victoria running at the state election there, which is coming up soon. Now that could be one hell of an interesting thing. But as I said, keeping momentum going is a difficult thing. And Pauline now has to juggle keeping momentum of a federal party going while trying to gain momentum, admittedly, some of which will be easy to gain off the back of the federal momentum in every state, but particularly key states, Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, and South Australia. Corey Bernardi's a known quantity in South Australia. I reckon he's a lay-down misere. Will he be going back? I think the plan is for him to go back into the Senate. But would he stand as South Australian leader for One Nation in the state election coming up? Just on the off chance they got elected. He wouldn't be a bad state premier, would he? Just throwing that out there. And speaking of things that are hard to keep going because momentum is difficult, one of our former colleagues, I guess we say, has decided to call it a day on his union. Yep, I'm talking about John Wilson. I haven't received it, but apparently there has been an email sent out to all the members of the Freedom Union saying that the Freedom Union is pausing operations because nobody's supporting it. Nobody's sending him $400 and expecting him to jump through hoops. So he has laid down, there have been many great expenses. What he hasn't laid down is any receipts for those very great expenses, I'm led to believe. And it's alleged that he has been asked for those and denied them. I don't know how true that is. Well, what I can say, though, is that John's attempt at the Freedom Union is now officially over, by the sound of it. There has been absolutely no word on whether or not he will be returning the membership monies that people have already paid.
And what a clustered fuck this is.
And on that note, folks, have yourself a bloody good night. Watch out for the dickheads on the road.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!